On Saturday, October 14th, at 8:47 p.m., my son stood up in a crowded restaurant and told me I was ordinary. He was holding a glass of Chateau Margaux 2015, $800 a bottle, that I had paid for. There were 47 people in that dining room. Every single one of them heard him. I'm Simone Blackwood. I'm 64 years old. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I simply placed my napkin on the table, stood up, and walked out. What my son Tristan didn't know, what nobody in that restaurant knew, was that I owned the company he was bragging about. I owned the car he drove there. I owned the penthouse apartment he called home. And by the following Monday morning, I had started the process of taking it all back. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end. Because this isn't a story about revenge. This is a story about foundations, about what happens when you build someone's entire world and they mistake the scaffolding for their own achievement. This is about the moment I realized that the greatest act of love I could give my son was to let him fall. The Sterling Room isn't just a restaurant, it's a statement. Located in the Buckhead district of Atlanta, it's where old money goes to remind new money that there's a difference. Crystal chandeliers hang from 20-foot ceilings like frozen waterfalls. The silverware is Christofle. The china is Limoges. Even the water glasses are Baccarat crystal, and they catch the light in a way that makes everything sparkle. I sat at a table for 8, surrounded by my family. Well, the people who were supposed to be my family. To my left was Derek Hayes, my ex-husband. We'd been divorced for 33 years, but you wouldn't know it from the way he acted, like he still had some claim to authority over me. He's 67 now. With silver hair he pays $200 every 3 weeks to maintain, and a jaw that's a little too tight from what I suspect is recent cosmetic work. He wore a navy Tom Ford suit that probably cost $4,000. Everything about Derek is expensive. Nothing about him is valuable. Next to him sat Isabella, his wife of 7 years. She's 38, which makes her young enough to be his daughter, a fact that doesn't seem to bother either of them. Isabella used to model. Local catalogs, nothing major, and she's never let anyone forget it. Tonight she wore a white Hervé Léger bandage dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Her hair was the kind of blonde that only comes from a salon that charges $600 a visit. Across from me sat my son, Tristan, 33 years old, 6 feet tall, with his father's dark hair and, unfortunately, his father's sense of entitlement. He wore a charcoal Hugo Boss suit with a Cartier Santos watch catching the light every time he gestured, which was often. Tristan has always been a performer. Next to him was Natalie, his wife of 3 years. She's 30, beautiful in that artificial, overly polished way that young people cultivate online these days. She has 47,000 followers on social media who hang on her every post about luxury lifestyle and wellness. Tonight she wore head-to-toe Zimmermann, and her engagement ring, a 2.5-carat diamond I later learned cost $32,000, kept catching the light as she took photos of her meal. I wore a simple navy dress from Talbot's that I'd owned for 6 years. No jewelry except my late husband Michael's wedding band on a chain around my neck. My hair, steel gray, cut in a practical bob, hadn't seen the inside of a high-end salon in a decade. I do it myself every 6 weeks, $15 box dye from CVS. To everyone at that table, I looked exactly like what they thought I was. A widow living on a fixed income, out of touch with modern success, quietly fading into irrelevance. They had no idea. The dinner had been Derek's idea, ostensibly to celebrate family. What it really was, I realized within the first 10 minutes, was a stage. Derek had chosen the Sterling Room deliberately. This was his territory, his world of polished surfaces and impressive price tags. And I was meant to be the audience, the contrast that made their success look brighter. Tristan was in rare form that night. He'd been drinking since we arrived, his 3rd glass of wine by the time the appetizers came, and the alcohol made him expansive, loud, generous with details about his achievements. The Series B funding closed last week, he announced, his voice carrying to the neighboring tables. $8.2 million. Velocity Tech Solutions is officially a major player now. That's wonderful, sweetheart, I said quietly. Isabella leaned forward, her eyes bright with something that wasn't quite kindness. Simone, you must be so proud. It must be amazing to see Tristan building something so impressive, especially when— She paused delicately. Well, especially considering how different your generation's approach to success was. Different how? I asked, though I knew exactly what she meant. Oh, you know, she waved a manicured hand. Your generation was more about stability, pensions, staying in one job for 40 years. It's sweet, really, but Tristan's generation understands that you have to think bigger. You have to project success to achieve success. Derek nodded sagely, swirling his wine. That's exactly right. Simone, you're brilliant in your own way. Nobody's denying that. But you've spent your whole career building roads and bridges that nobody remembers. You've lived in the same house for 30 years. You drive a 2015 Honda Civic. He said it like it was a diagnosis. There's no ambition there, no vision. I took a sip of water. The Baccarat crystal felt cool against my lips. I suppose not, I said. Natalie chimed in, her voice honey-sweet with condescension. But that's okay. Not everyone needs to be a CEO or an entrepreneur. The world needs regular people, too. Someone has to do the quiet work, right? The quiet work. As if building the infrastructure that holds up cities was something small and forgettable. Tristan laughed, the wine making him bold. Mom, remember when I came to you 6 years ago, when I wanted to start Velocity Tech? You told me you couldn't help, that your money was tied up in retirement accounts. He made air quotes with his fingers. You told me I should get a regular job first, work my way up. God, can you imagine? If I'd listened to you, I'd still be some middle manager somewhere, earning $60,000 a year. Terrible, Isabella murmured. But I didn't listen, Tristan continued, warming to his story. I went out there and found real investors, people who understood vision. Catalyst Ventures saw my pitch and wrote me a check for $2 million on the spot. $2 million, Mom, because they believed in me. I nodded slowly. That was fortunate. Fortunate? Derek scoffed. It was deserved. Tristan has drive. He has ambition. He's not content to just exist, to settle. The word hung in the air. Settle. As if my life, raising a child alone, working 2 jobs while getting my engineering degree, designing structures that would outlast us all, was settling. The entrees arrived. I'd ordered the salmon, $48, the cheapest thing on the menu. Tristan had ordered the Wagyu beef, $175. Derek got the lobster, $120. The bill for this meal would easily top $1,000, and I knew without asking that either Derek or Tristan would pay it, making a show of the expense. What none of them knew was that I could buy this restaurant, the entire building actually, in cash, and still have enough left over to retire comfortably for the next 40 years. But I stayed quiet. I ate my salmon. I listened to them talk about their achievements, their acquisitions, their importance. And I watched. I've always been good at watching, at seeing the structures beneath the surface. The explosion came during dessert. The waiter had just brought out a chocolate soufflé, $35, serves 2, that Tristan and Natalie were sharing. Isabella was on her phone, showing Derek photos of a lake house they were considering renting for the summer. $15,000 for the season, but it's worth it for the lifestyle content. And then Tristan stood up. I don't know if it was the wine, or the audience, or just the culmination of years of resentment finally boiling over. But he stood up, his chair scraping harshly against the floor, and the dining room went quiet. You know what? He said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent restaurant. I need to say something. Natalie tugged at his sleeve. Tristan, maybe... He shook her off. No, I need to say this. Mom. He looked down at me and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not just dismissal, contempt. I love you. I do. But you need to understand something. The other diners had stopped pretending not to listen. A waiter froze mid-step, holding a tray. You're brilliant, Tristan continued. You are. But you're ordinary. You've spent your whole life building roads nobody remembers, living in that same old house Dad left you. I designed that house, I said quietly. And your father didn't leave it to me. I bought him out in the divorce. He waved this away. Whatever. The point is, you settled. You settled for good enough. You settled for stability over success. Dad gets it. He gestured to Derek, who was nodding. Isabella gets it. James, my business consultant, he gets it. They understand that in this world you need to project success to be successful. But you... He paused, and I saw him searching for the right words, the cruelest words. You're from a generation that thought just working hard was enough, that being competent was sufficient. But it's not, Mom. Nobody remembers competent. Nobody celebrates ordinary. And I refuse. I refuse to be like that. I refuse to be ordinary. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the kitchen seemed to have gone quiet. I looked up at my son. His face was flushed with wine and conviction. Natalie had her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide. Derek was smiling slightly, as if Tristan had just said something profound. Isabella was watching me, waiting for tears. I gave them none. I placed my fork down on the plate with care. I folded my napkin, white linen, probably $40 to replace, and set it beside my untouched soufflé. I stood up. My chair made no sound because I moved it carefully, deliberately. I looked at Tristan for exactly 5 seconds, long enough for him to see that I wasn't devastated. I wasn't angry. I was simply done. Then I picked up my purse, a simple leather bag I'd owned for 8 years, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Derek say something to Tristan. I heard Isabella's laugh, light and dismissive. I heard the ambient noise of the restaurant slowly returning to normal, the show over. I pushed through the heavy wooden doors and into the October night. The air was cool, sharp with the promise of winter. My car, that 2015 Honda Civic with 127,000 miles, was in the parking garage 3 blocks away. I walked, 3 blocks through Buckhead's glittering streets, past boutiques with $2,000 dresses in the windows, past wine bars where bottles cost more than monthly rent for most people. My heels clicked steadily on the pavement. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I simply walked. And I thought about foundations. See, I'm a structural engineer. I've spent 42 years of my life understanding how buildings stand, how bridges hold weight, how to look at a structure and see not just what's visible, but what's holding it all up. The beams you can't see, the rebar buried in concrete, the foundations hidden underground. Tristan thought he'd built something. He thought Velocity Tech Solutions was his creation, his achievement, his success. He had no idea he'd been living in a structure I designed, funded, and controlled from the very beginning. And he was about to learn what happens when the engineer removes the support beams. By the time I pulled into my driveway in Virginia Highland, it was 10:17 p.m. I know the exact time because I looked at the clock on my microwave as I walked into my kitchen, and I remember thinking, this is when it begins. My house sits on a quiet street in Virginia Highland, an older Atlanta neighborhood where the homes have history and the trees are old enough to remember when this was all farmland. It's a 2-story brick colonial that I designed myself 30 years ago when I was 34 and pregnant with Tristan. Derek and I had already divorced by the time Tristan was born. He left when I was 6 months pregnant, but I had the settlement money and a fierce determination to build something that would last. The house is 2,400 square feet. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, a study, and a kitchen with windows that face east so I can watch the sunrise while I have my coffee. Every beam, every joint, every load-bearing wall was calculated by me. I know this structure the way I know my own heartbeat. It's not flashy. The kitchen cabinets are the original oak from 1994. The countertops are Formica, not granite. The appliances are white, not stainless steel. The whole place probably looks dated to people like Isabella and Natalie, who measure worth in subway tile and farmhouse sinks. But it's mine. Truly mine. Designed, built, and paid for with my own money, my own work, my own vision. I walked through the quiet rooms, turning on lights. The living room with its built-in bookshelves, filled with engineering textbooks and mystery novels. The dining room where I'd hosted Tristan's birthday parties for 18 years, back when he still looked at me like I was someone worth celebrating. The study. I stopped in the study doorway. This room is my favorite. It's small, just 10 by 12 feet, but every inch is purposeful. The walls are covered in framed blueprints. The Henderson Avenue Bridge I designed in 1998. The Riverside Community Center from 2004. The expansion to Grady Hospital's parking structure from 2011. Real things. Things that hold weight. Things that last. On my desk, there's a silver-framed photograph that I haven't moved in 15 years. It shows Tristan at age 5, wearing a plastic yellow construction helmet that's too big for his head. He's sitting on my shoulders at a job site, grinning with pure joy, pointing at a crane in the distance. I picked up the photo and looked at that little boy's face. Where did I lose him? When did my son, who used to bring me drawings of bridges he'd designed, who used to ask me to explain how buildings stood up, turn into the man at that restaurant? The question hurt, but not in a sharp way. It was a dull, familiar ache that I'd been carrying for years without fully acknowledging it. I set the photo down and turned on my computer. My Dell desktop is 12 years old. It runs slowly, makes a grinding sound when it boots up, and has a crack in the upper right corner of the screen from when I dropped a book on it in 2019. By Tristan's standards, it's ancient, obsolete, ordinary, but it works, and more importantly, it contains everything. I opened my encrypted files, password protected, backed up in 3 locations, and looked at the folders I'd been maintaining for the last 6 years. Each one had an innocuous name that wouldn't mean anything to someone who stumbled across them. Home projects equals property holdings. Budget planning equals financial structures. Work contacts equals business entities. Tax documents 2018 to 2024 equals trust agreements. I'd been preparing for this day since the moment I funded Tristan's company. I'd hoped I'd never need to execute the plan. I'd hoped that somewhere along the way he'd learn. He'd grow. He'd become the man I'd raised him to be, not the man his father had shaped him into. But tonight, calling me ordinary in front of 47 strangers, I'd realized the hope was killing both of us. Him, because he was drowning in an illusion. Me, because I kept enabling it. I opened my email and typed 3 words in the subject line. Subject, Phase Omega. The recipient was already saved in my contacts, diane.porter@porterlegal.com. Diane Porter has been my attorney for 31 years. We met in 1993 when I was a 32-year-old engineer trying to negotiate my divorce settlement with Derek, who'd shown up with a shark from a white shoe law firm. Diane was 33, fresh off making partner at her firm, and she ate that shark for breakfast. We've been friends ever since. She's handled every contract, every property purchase, every legal structure I've ever created. She knows things about my finances that nobody else on earth knows. Not Tristan, not Derek, nobody. And 6 years ago, when I decided to fund Tristan's company through a complex web of LLCs and trust structures, Diane was the one who built the framework. She was also the one who insisted on what she called the kill switch. Just in case, she'd said, just in case he doesn't learn. I'd resisted the term. It's not about killing anything. It's about structural integrity testing. She'd laughed. Simone, you can call it whatever you want, but we both know what we're building here. We're building a controlled demolition. The email I wrote was short, to diane.porter@porterlegal.com, from simone.blackwood@gmail.com, date October 14th, 2024, 10:31 p.m. Subject Phase Omega Diane, tomorrow morning, your office. 8 a.m., bring all the files. Simone, I hit send. The whoosh sound seemed loud in the quiet house. Then I sat back in my chair and looked around my study, at the blueprints, at the photo of 5-year-old Tristan, at the life I'd built, brick by brick, calculation by calculation, always trying to be strong enough for both of us. I didn't feel angry. I felt clear, like I'd been looking through a dirty window for years, and someone had finally cleaned it. My phone buzzed, a text from Diane. I've been waiting for this message for 6 years. See you at 8. I smiled for the first time since leaving the restaurant. The rest of the weekend passed in a strange, suspended calm. Sunday morning, I woke at 6 a.m. like always. I made coffee, the same Folgers Classic Roast I've been drinking for 20 years, $8.99 for a 30.5-ounce container at Kroger, and sat on my back porch watching the sunrise. My garden needed work. The rose bushes were overgrown, sending out wild shoots in every direction. I spent 2 hours pruning them, cutting back the dead wood and the branches that were taking resources from the main stem. Gardening has always made sense to me in the same way engineering does. You look at the structure, you identify what's essential, and you ruthlessly remove everything else. It's not cruel, it's necessary. A rose bush that's allowed to grow wild will eventually choke itself. You have to cut it back, sometimes almost to the base, to let it grow strong. As I worked, my phone kept buzzing. Texts from Tristan. 10:17 a.m. Mom, sorry if I was harsh last night. Can we talk? 11:03 a.m. Mom, 1:45 p.m. I know you're probably upset, but I think you're overreacting. 4:22 p.m. Mom, seriously, call me back. I read each one. I didn't respond. I put the phone face down on the porch table and went back to my roses. By evening, I had 12 missed calls from Tristan, 3 from Natalie, and 2 from Derek. I listened to none of the voicemails. I deleted them all without playing them. This wasn't cruelty. This was necessity. Sometimes love requires silence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop responding, stop enabling, stop being the foundation they take for granted. That night, I made myself dinner, chicken breast, steamed broccoli, brown rice, and ate it at my kitchen table while reading a biography of Emily Warren Roebling, the woman who supervised the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge after her husband fell ill. She did the work. She understood the engineering. She held the structure together. But for years, she got no credit because she was a woman in 1870s New York. History is full of invisible engineers, the people who hold things up while others take the bows. I was done being invisible. The night stretched on quietly. I watered my plants. I reviewed some blueprints for Monday's site meeting. I prepared my clothes for the morning, simple gray slacks and a white blouse, professional and unremarkable. At 9:30 p.m., I went to bed. I slept soundly, deeply, the way you sleep when you finally made a decision you've been avoiding for years. Monday morning, October 16th, 7:52 a.m., I walked into the reception area of Porter & Associates on the 45th floor of the Bank of America Plaza building in downtown Atlanta. The office smells like success, leather and fresh coffee, and the subtle scent of expensive cologne. The receptionist, a young man named Jason who's worked there for 3 years, smiled when he saw me. "Ms. Blackwood, Ms. Porter said to send you straight back. Can I get you coffee?" "Black, no sugar, please." "The way you drink it when you mean business," he said with a knowing smile. Diane's corner office has floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of Centennial Park. On a clear day like this, you can see all the way to Stone Mountain. Her desk is a massive piece of oak that she bought at an estate sale in 1997. It used to belong to a Georgia Supreme Court justice. Behind it, her law degree from Emory hangs next to her license to practice. She was standing by the windows when I walked in, holding 2 mugs of coffee. She's 58 now, her dark hair streaked with silver she refuses to dye. She wore a charcoal pantsuit, Ann Taylor, not designer, and practical flats. Diane has never cared about flash. She cares about substance. "Morning, Simone," she said, handing me one of the mugs. "I made the coffee the second I got your email." I took it. The ceramic was warm in my hands. "Thank you." She gestured to these 2 leather chairs by the window, not the power dynamic of her behind the desk, and we sat next to each other as equals. "I'll be honest," Diane said, studying my face. "When I saw Phase Omega in my inbox Saturday night, my heart sank. I always hoped this was a plan we'd never have to use." "So did I said quietly. "What happened?" I told her about the dinner, the restaurant, the wine, Tristan standing up and calling me ordinary in front of 47 people, Isabella's condescending sweetness, Derek's smug approval, Natalie documenting everything for her social media. When I finished, Diane was quiet for a long moment. "Ordinary," she finally said. The word tasted bitter in her mouth. The woman who designed the Henderson Avenue Bridge, who put herself through graduate school while raising a baby alone, who has a net worth of... She pulled up a file on her tablet. $43.2 million. That woman is ordinary. In his mind, yes. And in your mind? What are you? I looked out at the Atlanta skyline, at the buildings I'd helped design, the infrastructure I'd helped build. I'm someone who knows the difference between a foundation and a facade, and it's time my son learned that difference too. Diane nodded slowly. Her expression shifted from concerned friend to focused attorney. "All right, let's review the structures." She stood and walked to a locked cabinet, pulled out 3 thick folders and spread them across her desk. I joined her, and we stood side by side, looking down at 6 years of careful, deliberate planning. Folder 1, Velocity Tech Solutions. Diane opened it to the first page, which showed the corporate structure in a flowchart. "Let's start with his crown jewel," she said. "Velocity Tech Solutions, incorporated in Delaware on March 3, 2018. I'd memorized these numbers years ago, but hearing Diane recite them made them real. Tristan came to you in February 2018 wanting to start a tech company. He needed $2 million in seed funding. You told him no. You told him your money was tied up in retirement accounts. Do you remember what he said? He said I didn't understand modern business, that I was too risk-averse, that I was from a generation that would never build anything great. Right. So you came to me and we built him something great. Or rather, the illusion of something great. She pulled out the next document. We created Catalyst Ventures, LLC, a Delaware-based venture capital firm. Registered address, 1209 Orange Street, Wilmington, a registered agent address that serves about 300,000 Delaware LLCs. The actual owner of Catalyst Ventures? The Blackwood Family Trust, I said, which I control as sole trustee. Exactly. Then we hired Theodore Chen, a retired business professor from Berkeley, to serve as the managing partner of Catalyst Ventures. We pay him $75,000 a year to take meetings, sign documents, and maintain the fiction. He flew to Atlanta in March 2018, listened to Tristan's pitch, and wrote him a check for $2 million. I remembered watching the video Tristan had posted on his professional networking site. His face glowing with pride, shaking hands with Ted Chen from Catalyst Ventures, talking about how his vision had attracted Silicon Valley interest. The ownership structure of Velocity Tech Solutions, Diane continued, pulling out another document. 70% of shares are held by Catalyst Ventures, which is wholly owned by your trust. 15% are held by Tristan as CEO. The remaining 15% are reserved for future employees. The board of directors consists of 5 people, Theodore Chen, plus 4 nominees I selected, all compensated by you, all loyal to you. So Tristan owns 15% of a company he thinks he founded. Correct. He's not the owner. He's a highly paid employee with delusions of entrepreneurship. Diane pulled out another set of documents showing the Series A and Series B funding rounds. All money that came from my trust, funneled through increasingly complex structures to maintain the illusion. The $8.2 million he bragged about Saturday night? Diane said. That's your money, Simone. Every dollar. Folder 2, the Mercedes. Diane closed the Velocity Tech folder and opened the next one. This one was thinner, but no less devastating. Now let's talk about his car, she said. The 2023 Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon, Arctic White, AMG package, custom leather interior, sticker price, $187,450. I remembered the day Tristan showed up at my house in that car. It was July 2022. He'd pulled into my driveway with the music thumping, the sun glinting off the chrome, and he'd honked twice like he was announcing royalty. Check it out, Mom, he'd called through the open window. The company leased it for me, for client meetings. You have to project success to attract success. I'd walked around the car, noting the ridiculous size of it, the absurdity of a tech CEO needing a vehicle designed for off-road luxury. It's very large, I'd said. He'd laughed. It's necessary, Mom. Image is everything. Now Diane was showing me the paperwork behind that image. Tristan tried to lease this vehicle in his own name in June 2022, she said. His application was denied. His personal credit score at the time was 628. Too many credit cards maxed out, student loans from that MBA program he never finished, so he had Velocity Tech apply for a corporate lease. But Velocity Tech didn't lease it either, I said. Correct. The lease is held by Blackwood Asset Management, LLC, another entity we created, registered in Delaware, owned by your trust. We approached Tristan through Velocity Tech's CFO with an offer. Blackwood Asset Management specializes in executive fleet management. We could provide the vehicle through a corporate arrangement, and Velocity Tech would pay a monthly fee of $2,800, which Velocity Tech pays with money from Catalyst Ventures, which comes from my trust. Exactly. The lease agreement, Section 4, Paragraph C, which Tristan signed without reading, states clearly that the vehicle is provided for the use of a designated employee of Velocity Tech Solutions. The moment that employment status changes, access to the vehicle terminates. 24 hours notice required. I sipped my coffee. It had gone lukewarm. He's been driving my car for 2 years, thinking it proved his success. Every trip to get coffee, every client meeting, every photo Natalie posted online of them driving to Hilton Head for the weekend. all in a car you own that you can take back with a single phone call. Folder 3, the penthouse. The third folder was the thickest. Diane had to use both hands to lift it. And finally, she said, we have 847 Peachtree Street Northeast, Unit 4502, the penthouse at Skyline Tower. I knew this property intimately. I'd bought the entire building in September 2019 for $43.7 million. It was an undervalued asset in a neighborhood on the verge of gentrification. The building has 127 units total. 42 were occupied when I purchased it. By 2023, all but 3 were full, and the property value had increased to approximately $71 million. Tristan's penthouse, the crown jewel of the building, is 2,800 square feet with floor-to-ceiling windows, a chef's kitchen, 2 balconies, and a view of the entire Atlanta skyline. Market rent, $8,500 per month. Tristan and Natalie started looking for an apartment in October 2021, Diane said, pulling out a timeline. They wanted something that would impress their friends, something suitable for their online presence. They found the penthouse at Skyline Tower and fell in love with it. He called me about it, I remembered. He said it was perfect, but just barely out of his price range. He asked if I could help with the security deposit. Just $8,500, he said, like it was nothing. And you told him no. I told him it was reckless to live beyond his means. Diane smiled. What you didn't tell him was that you owned the building, that you'd bought it 2 years earlier through Meridian Properties LLC, that the landlord was actually a property management firm, Prestige Property Group, that we hired to run the building. She pulled out a letter dated November 15th, 2021, on Prestige Property Group letterhead. The property manager, a man named Robert Chen, no relation to Theodore, but similar demographic to maintain consistency, contacted Tristan with a special offer. The building was looking for a high-profile tenant to add prestige. As the CEO of a growing tech company, Tristan fit the profile. They offered him an executive incentive lease. At what rate? $500 per month, plus utilities and HOA fees, which come to about $600 more, so $1,100 total for an $8,500 apartment. I closed my eyes briefly. 87% discount. For a home he thought he'd earned through his success. The lease agreement, Diane continued, pulling it out, is 37 pages long. Tristan signed it without reading it. His signature is right here on page 37, next to Natalie's, says, "Do you know what's on page 19, section 7, clause C? Tell me." This executive incentive lease is contingent upon lessee's continued employment with an affiliated technology company in good standing. In the event of employment termination or significant status change, lessor reserves the right to terminate this agreement with 72 hours written notice. Lessee acknowledges this is a performance-based arrangement and not a standard residential lease. 72 hours, I repeated. 72 hours. We can serve him Wednesday, and he has to be out by Saturday at noon. I looked at all 3 folders spread across Diane's desk. Velocity Tech Solutions, the Mercedes G-Wagon, the penthouse at Skyline Tower. 3 pillars holding up Tristan's entire identity. 3 pillars I'd designed, funded, and controlled from the very beginning. There's one more thing, Diane said quietly. She pulled out a thinner folder I hadn't noticed. James Walker, the business consultant. The business consultant that your ex-husband Derek recommended to Tristan 5 years ago. The man Tristan pays $75,000 per year for strategic advice. Would you like to know what we discovered about Mr. Walker? Tell me. James Walker hasn't had another client since 2019. Velocity Tech Solutions is his only source of income. Every strategic decision he's encouraged Tristan to make, the expensive office lease, the luxury furniture, the corporate retreats, the focus on brand building over product development, has been designed to keep Velocity Tech dependent on external guidance and burning through capital, which wouldn't matter because you keep funding it through Catalyst Ventures. But it's made Tristan fundamentally incapable of independent business operation. Derek planted a saboteur. Derek planted a leash. My theory? Your ex-husband has been living beyond his means for years. Isabella's family money helps, but Derek wanted access to real wealth. He couldn't get it from you. You're too smart for that. So he cultivated Tristan's success so he could leech off it indirectly. James reports to Derek. Every major decision Tristan makes, Derek knows about it first. The rage I'd expected to feel on Saturday night finally arrived. Not hot and explosive, cold and precise. How long have you known this? I confirmed it 3 months ago. I've been waiting for you to give the word. I stood up and walked to the windows. 45 stories below, Atlanta moved through its Monday morning. People going to work, traffic flowing, the city functioning on infrastructure that people like me had built. What's the timeline? I asked. Diane stood beside me. We move in stages. Controlled demolition, like you said. If you hit him with everything at once, it's just chaos. He'll never understand what he lost or why. Walk me through it. Today, Monday, 5 p.m., we terminate the Mercedes lease. Tow truck arrives at Velocity Tech's parking garage. Very public. Very embarrassing. Tuesday? Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. Catalyst Ventures sends an email to Velocity Tech's board initiating a corporate restructuring. Tristan's admin access to all financial systems gets suspended. All corporate credit cards are frozen. James Walker's consulting contract is terminated effective immediately. Wednesday? Wednesday, 10 a.m. Meridian Properties serves an eviction notice at the penthouse. 72 hours to vacate. He'll know by then that everything is connected, that someone is dismantling his life piece by piece. And then we wait. We let him try to figure it out. Let him make his phone calls. Let him panic. And when he's ready, when he's standing in the ruins, we tell him the truth. I turned to face her, my oldest friend, the woman who'd stood by me through a bitter divorce, through Michael's death, through all the quiet years of building and planning. Are you sure about this, Diane? Once we start, there's no going back. She met my eyes. Simone, I watched you build a bridge across the Chattahoochee River in 2003. Do you remember what you told me when I asked how you knew it would hold? I said I'd done the math. You said you'd done the math. You'd calculated every load, every stress point, every variable. You said when you understand the structure, you know exactly when it will fail and when it will stand. You've done the math on this too. You know what you're doing. I'm destroying my son's life. No, you're removing a faulty structure before it collapses on him. There's a difference. I looked at my watch. 8:47 a.m. Tristan would be at his office by now, in his corner suite with the glass walls, feeling powerful and successful, with no idea that in 8 hours and 13 minutes, his world would begin to collapse. Do it, I said. Execute phase Omega. Diane picked up her phone. Her fingers moved across the screen with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd typed these messages weeks ago, just waiting for authorization. Stage 1 authorization sent, she said. The tow truck will be at Velocity Tech's garage at 5 p.m. sharp. Let's review everything one more time, I said. I need to see the full structure before we begin. We spent the next hour going through every detail, every document, every contingency. By the time I left Diane's office at 10:15 a.m., I felt the strange calm that comes from irrevocable decision. The Rubicon was crossed. The demolition had begun. I drove to my construction site in Midtown, where I was overseeing the expansion of a medical office building. I spent the day doing what I do best, checking calculations, reviewing load-bearing specifications, ensuring that what we built would last. At 4:45 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Diane. Tow truck in position. Stage 1 commencing in 15 minutes. I put my phone away and focused on my work. But a small part of me, the part that was still a mother, still loved my son despite everything, counted down the minutes. I wasn't there to see it happen, but I have the security footage. Diane obtained it legally. We own the building that houses Velocity Tech's offices, and sent it to me later that night. The video is time-stamped 5:03 p.m. The parking garage is underground, fluorescent lit, with concrete pillars and painted lines. Tristan's Mercedes sits in spot B7, right next to the elevator. Reserved parking for the CEO. At 5:03, a yellow flatbed tow truck pulls into the garage. The driver is a man in his 50s named William Martinez. Diane hired him specifically because he's professional, efficient, and completely uninterested in drama. At 5:04, the elevator doors open and Tristan walks out. He's on his phone, laughing about something. He's wearing a navy suit, probably Brooks Brothers, around $1,200, and those Italian leather shoes he loves. Johnston & Murphy, $395. He sees the tow truck and stops. The security camera doesn't have audio, but I can see him mouth, "What the hell?" William is already hooking the Mercedes up to the flatbed. He's done this 1,000 times. It takes him 90 seconds to secure the vehicle. Tristan walks over quickly. His body language shifts from confused to aggressive. He's gesturing at the car, at William, at his phone. William shows him a clipboard. Tristan grabs it, reads it, and his face goes pale. The footage shows him making a phone call, then another, then another. 3 calls in 5 minutes, each one more agitated than the last. William doesn't engage. He just finishes securing the vehicle, gets in his truck, and starts driving toward the exit ramp. Tristan actually tries to stand in front of the truck. William stops, waits patiently for 10 seconds, then honks once. Tristan moves. The last image on the security footage is Tristan standing alone in parking spot B7, staring at the empty space where his $187,000 symbol of success used to be. My phone rang at 5:47 p.m. Tristan. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail, which I still have saved. "Mom, something insane is happening. My car just got repossessed." Repossessed. The tow company said something about Blackwood Asset Management? I don't understand. The lease is paid up. This has to be a mistake. Can you call me back, please? His voice cracked on the please. I listened to the entire message. Then I saved it and went to water my garden. That evening I made myself a simple dinner: grilled chicken, steamed green beans, a small salad. I ate at my kitchen table while reviewing blueprints for tomorrow's site inspection. My phone continued to buzz with calls and texts from Tristan, but I ignored them all. At 9 p.m., Diane called. "Stage 1 complete," she said. "No complications. How are you holding up?" "I'm fine," I said. And I was. "What about tomorrow?" "Stage 2 executes at 9 a.m. sharp. I'll text you when it's done." "Thank you, Diane." "Simone?" Her voice softened. "What you're doing, it's the hardest kind of love. Don't forget that." After we hung up, I sat for a long time in my study, looking at that photo of 5-year-old Tristan in his construction helmet. That little boy had loved buildings and bridges. He'd loved creating things, understanding how they worked. When did he lose that? When did the joy of building get replaced by the need to perform? I turned off the light and went to bed. Tomorrow would be harder. Diane texted me at 8:58 a.m. Stage 2 executing in 90 seconds. I was at a construction site in Midtown, reviewing plans for a medical office building expansion. My phone buzzed again at 9:01. Email sent. Access terminated. Credit frozen. Walker contract voided. Across town, Tristan was arriving at Velocity Tech's office building. He'd taken a $93 Uber from his penthouse, a 40-minute ride that cost more than some people make in a day. I know because Natalie posted about it on her social media. A photo of an Uber receipt with the caption, "When your car situation is complicated but coffee can't wait." She deleted it 3 hours later. Tristan went straight to the coffee shop in his building's lobby. He ordered his usual, 6 large lattes and 4 cappuccinos for his team, plus a box of pastries. It's a ritual he does every Tuesday. The bill is usually around $87. He handed the barista his corporate card, the one with no spending limit, the one that proved he was important. The card reader beeped, declined. "That's weird," the barista said. "Want me to try again?" "Please." She tried again, declined. "Do you have another card?" Tristan pulled out a second corporate card. The backup, declined. There were 12 people in line behind him, all of them watching, all of them waiting. I'll come back," Tristan said and walked away without the coffee. Natalie told me later, months later during one of our reconciliation conversations, that Tristan went straight to his office and tried to log into Velocity Tech's financial systems. Access denied. He tried the banking portal. Access denied. He tried his corporate email. That worked, but there was a message waiting at the top of his inbox. From board@catalystventures.com to allstaff@velocitytech.com. Date, October 17th, 2024, 9 a.m. Subject, urgent, corporate restructuring notice. Effective immediately, the Board of Directors of Catalyst Ventures, LLC, has initiated a comprehensive operational review of Velocity Tech Solutions. As part of this review, 1. All executive-level access to financial systems is suspended pending audit completion. 2. All corporate credit instruments are frozen pending review. 3. All non-essential vendor contracts are terminated, including external consulting arrangements. 4. A detailed financial audit will be conducted over the next 30 days. This action is being taken to ensure fiscal responsibility and long-term sustainability. Further updates will be provided as the review progresses. The Board of Directors, Catalyst Ventures, LLC. Natalie said Tristan read that email 4 times. Then he tried calling the number listed for Catalyst Ventures. It went to voicemail. He called Theodore Chen. Voicemail. He called his CFO, Marcus Webb. Marcus answered but sounded confused. Tristan, I got the same email you did. I don't know what's happening. The board has never done anything like this before. I didn't even know we had an active board. What do you mean you didn't know? You've been CFO for 3 years. I mean, I've never met any of them. All communication has been through email. I assumed they were hands-off investors. At 10:15 a.m., James Walker called Tristan. What the hell did you do? James yelled. My contract just got terminated via email. After 5 years, they fired me with a 2-sentence email. I didn't do anything. Well, someone did. And guess what? That contract was my only income. I have a mortgage, Tristan. I have car payments. What am I supposed to do? I don't know. I'm locked out of my own company. Your company? Tristan, wake up. It was never your company. The line went dead. At 11:30 a.m., Tristan called me. I was having lunch at a deli near my construction site. Tuna sandwich on wheat, $8.50, ice water with lemon. I let it ring, and ring, and ring. He called 6 more times that afternoon. I answered none of them. At 4:17 p.m., he finally left a voicemail that showed he was starting to understand. Mom, I know this is you. I don't know how, but I know. Please, we need to talk. I'm sorry about what I said. I'm sorry. Just, please call me back. I listened to the whole message. Then I saved it. Not to gloat, but to remember. To remember the moment when my son's voice finally cracked with something real. Not performance, not arrogance. Fear. Actual, genuine fear. That evening, I sat on my back porch with a glass of iced tea and watched the sun set over Atlanta. The sky turned orange and pink and purple, the colors deepening as the light faded. My phone rang. Derek. I didn't answer. Then Isabella. I didn't answer. Then Natalie. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. Simone? Her voice was small, uncertain. Hello, Natalie. I don't know what's happening. Tristan is in the bedroom. He won't talk to me. He keeps saying everything is falling apart. Is this... Did you... Yes, I said simply. There was a long silence. He deserved it, she finally whispered. What he said to you. That was cruel. Yes, it was. Are you going to destroy him completely? No, Natalie. I'm going to save him. But he won't understand that yet. Another silence, then... Thank you for answering. I needed to know this wasn't random, that someone was in control. Tomorrow will be worse, I told her gently. Be ready. I hung up and looked out at the darkening sky. Tomorrow, he would lose his home. I was at my kitchen table drinking coffee when my phone buzzed with a text from Diane. Stage 3 executed. Process server arrived at 9:58 a.m. 2 days. It had only been 2 days since Saturday night's dinner, but I felt like I'd aged a year. Not from regret, I had none, but from the weight of what I was doing. Dismantling your child's life, even when necessary, even when loving, is a kind of surgery performed on your own heart. I set my phone down and looked out the window at my garden. The roses I'd pruned on Sunday were already looking healthier, the energy redirected to the strong branches instead of wasting on dead wood. At that moment, 4.7 miles away, Tristan was opening his front door. The process server's name was Patricia Morales. She's 52, has been serving legal documents for 23 years, and has seen every possible human reaction to bad news. Diane uses her exclusively because Patricia is professional, compassionate, and completely unbribable. Patricia knocked at 9:58 a.m. exactly. Natalie answered. She was wearing yoga pants and a matching top. Her hair was in a messy bun. No makeup. She looked young and scared. Can I help you? I'm looking for Mr. Tristan Blackwood or Mrs. Natalie Blackwood. I'm Natalie. I have a document that requires personal service. Patricia held out a manila envelope, thick and official looking. Natalie took it like it might explode. What is this? Notice of lease termination. The details are inside. You have 72 hours from the time of service, which is now 9:58 a.m. on October 18th, to vacate the premises. That means Saturday, October 21st by 10 a.m. Vacate? What are you talking about? We live here. The documentation explains everything. If you have questions, there's a contact number inside. Have a good day, ma'am. Patricia walked away. She'd been doing this long enough to know that staying for the breakdown never helped anyone. Natalie stood in the doorway, holding the envelope like it was something poisonous. Tristan appeared behind her, already dressed for the office, even though he had no car to drive there. Navy suit, no tie today. He looked like he hadn't slept. Who was that? Natalie handed him the envelope without speaking. Tristan tore it open. Inside were 37 pages of legal documentation, but the first page said everything. Notice of lease termination. Property, 847 Peachtree Street, NE, Unit 4502, Atlanta, G, A30308, Lessor Meridian Properties, LLC, lessee, Tristan Blackwood, and Natalie Blackwood. Lease date, November 15th, 2021. Termination date, October 18th, 2024, 9:58 a.m. Vacate deadline, October 21st, 2024, 10 a.m., 72 hours. Reason for termination, per Section 7, Clause C of the Executive Incentive Lease Agreement. This lease is contingent upon lessee's continued employment with an affiliated technology company in good standing. As of October 17, 2024, lessee's employment status has materially changed, rendering the executive incentive arrangement void. Legal contact, Diane Porter, Porter & Associates, 404-555-0147. Tristan read it twice, then a third time. His hands were shaking. This is insane, he whispered. Natalie, do you know what this says? That we have to leave, that we have 3 days. No, not just that. Look at this. He flipped to page 19, to the clause that had been buried in the lease they'd signed 3 years ago. It says the lease was never real. It was contingent on employment. We've been living here on borrowed status. I don't understand. Neither do I. But even as he said it, I think he was starting to. The car repossession by Blackwood Asset Management, the company restructuring by Catalyst Ventures, and now eviction by Meridian Properties. 3 different entities, 3 coordinated attacks, 3 pieces of a structure he was only beginning to see. He pulled out his phone and searched for Meridian Properties, LLC. The search returned a Delaware business registry showing the company was incorporated in August 2019. Owner information, private, registered agent, Harbor Compliance Services, 1209 Orange Street, Wilmington, Delaware. The same address as Catalyst Ventures. Oh God, Tristan said. Oh my God. He searched Blackwood Asset Management, LLC, Delaware Corporation. Incorporated March 2020, registered agent, Harbor Compliance Services, 1209 Orange Street. The same address, the same structure, the same invisible hand. Natalie, his voice was barely audible. These are all the same person. The car, the company, the apartment. Someone owns all of it. Someone has been controlling everything. Who? But he already knew. There was only one person with both the motive and the capacity. Only one person he'd humiliated publicly. Only one person whose calls he'd been ignoring for 3 days. He looked at Natalie, and she saw it in his face. Your mother, she said. He nodded. At 10:47 a.m., Tristan called me for the 14th time since Saturday. This time I answered. Hello, Tristan. Mom? His voice cracked. Mom, please. We need to talk. Can I come over? Please? I looked at the clock. I'd been expecting this call. Waiting for it, actually. The moment when the structure became visible to him, when he could no longer pretend this was random misfortune. 7 o'clock tonight, I said. Come to the house. Can we do it sooner? Mom, 7 o'clock, Tristan, don't be late. I hung up. The hours between that phone call and 7 p.m. passed slowly. I tried to focus on work. I had blueprints to review, calculations to check. But my mind kept drifting to what I would say, how I would say it. I'd rehearsed this conversation in my head 100 times over the past 6 years. I'd imagined every possible version of it. But now that the moment was here, I felt the weight of it settling on my shoulders. This wasn't about revenge. It had never been about revenge. This was about love. The hardest kind of love. The kind that requires you to hurt someone to help them. At 6:30 p.m., I made myself a cup of tea. Earl Grey, my favorite. I sat in my study, surrounded by my blueprints and my books and my life's work, and I waited. At 6:52 p.m., I saw the Uber pull up outside. Tristan sat in the car for almost 2 minutes, just staring at my house. The house he'd called that old place. The house he'd told Isabella was where Mom insists on living even though she could afford better. He had no idea I could afford to buy his entire world 6 times over. I opened the door before he could knock. "Come in." He looked terrible. His suit, the same navy one from this morning, was wrinkled. His hair, usually perfectly styled, was messy. His eyes were red-rimmed and hollow. "Study," I said and led him there. This time I didn't sit behind my desk in a position of power. I sat in one of the 2 chairs I keep for reading and gestured for him to take the other. We faced each other as equals, or at least as equal as we could be, given that I owned everything he thought was his. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "Mom, he started. "Let me talk first," I said gently. "You can respond after." He nodded, looking like a child being called to the principal's office. I pulled out my laptop, that old Dell that he'd mocked, and turned it toward him. "Do you know what Catalyst Ventures is?" "My investors. They funded Velocity Tech." "No. Catalyst Ventures is a shell corporation I created in February 2018. It's wholly owned by the Blackwood Family Trust, which I control. The investor who wrote you that $2 million check? His name is Theodore Chen. I pay him $75,000 a year to pretend to be a venture capitalist. He's actually a retired professor who does this as a side job." Tristan's face went gray. I opened the first file. "Velocity Tech Solutions is not your company. You own 15%. I own 70% through Catalyst Ventures. The board of directors you've never met? I appointed every single one of them. Every funding round. Every financial decision. Every dollar that kept your company running. That was me." No, let me finish." I opened the second file. "The Mercedes G-Wagon. You thought the company leased it for you. The company tried, but they couldn't secure the lease. Velocity Tech's credit wasn't established enough. So I created Blackwood Asset Management to hold the title. You've been driving my car for 2 years, Tristan. My car. Insured by my company. Maintained with my money." His hands were gripping the armrests of the chair so tightly his knuckles had gone white. I opened the third file. "And this apartment you've been living in. The penthouse at Skyline Tower. I bought that entire building in September 2019 for $43.7 million. Meridian Properties is my LLC. The executive incentive lease was fiction. You've been living in my building in my apartment at a 93% discount because I wanted you to feel successful." "Why?" The word came out as a gasp. "Why would you do this?" "Because 6 years ago you came to me asking for help. You had a dream and no discipline. An idea and no experience. Ambition and no patience. I knew that if I gave you money directly, you'd waste it and learn nothing. So I gave it to you indirectly. I created a stage, hired actors, and let you perform. I hoped that maybe doing the work would teach you, that you'd grow into the role. But I did the work. I built Velocity Tech. I made it successful." "Did you? Or did you follow James Walker's advice every step of the way?" His expression changed. Confusion, then dawning fear. "Let me tell you about James Walker," I said softly. 5 years ago, your father Derek recommended him to you. "A brilliant consultant," Derek said. "Someone who can help you navigate the business world." Do you remember? "Yes. James Walker hasn't had another client since 2019. Velocity Tech is his only income. Every piece of advice he gave you, lease expensive office space, buy luxury furniture, focus on brand over product, was designed to keep you dependent and spending. And every major decision you made, James reported back to Derek. What? I pulled up an email chain that Diane had obtained through legal discovery. Derek to James, dated March 2022. How's the kid doing? Is he manageable? Remember, we need him successful enough to be useful, but not independent enough to cut ties." Tristan read it, then read it again. His face went from gray to white. Dad was using me? Your father has been living beyond his means for 15 years. Isabella's family helps, but Derek wanted access to real money. He couldn't get it from me. I'd never give him another dime after the divorce. So he cultivated your success to leech off it. James's $75,000 a year contract? I'd bet anything half of that went straight to Derek as a kickback. Everyone was using me? Everyone? Not everyone. Natalie loves you. That's real. But yes, Tristan, your company, your car, your home, your mentor, all of it was either me protecting you or your father exploiting you. You built nothing on your own. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Tristan started crying. Not the quiet, dignified tears of a man who's lost something. The gasping, ugly sobs of someone whose entire reality has shattered. His voice was so small when he finally spoke, so broken. For a moment I saw him at 5 years old again, coming to me with a scraped knee, trusting that I could fix anything. "What am I supposed to do now?" he managed to say. "Mom, what do I do?" "You're supposed to start over," I said gently. "At the bottom, where everyone starts." "I don't know how." His voice was so small, so broken. For a moment I saw him at 5 years old again, coming to me with a scraped knee, trusting that I could fix anything. "I know," I said softly. "That's why I'm doing this." I stood up and walked to my desk. I pulled out a piece of paper I'd prepared that afternoon. "This is a job offer. Project coordinator at my engineering firm. $52,000 a year. You'll manage permits, timelines, and budgets. You'll work with construction crews. You'll get dirty. You'll be exhausted. And nobody will call you CEO." He stared at the paper like it was written in a foreign language. "Why would you offer me this?" "Because you're my son. And because I believe that the boy who used to help me design model bridges is still in there somewhere. But Tristan, I need you to understand something." I sat back down and looked him straight in the eye. "This was never about punishing you. This was about saving you from becoming your father." "What?" I took a breath. This was the part I'd been dreading, the part that required me to reveal a truth I'd kept hidden for 33 years. "When Derek left me, I was 6 months pregnant with you. He said I lacked ambition. What he meant was, I wouldn't abandon my principles to chase status. 3 years later, he called me. He was in financial trouble. He'd been fired for falsifying sales reports. He was desperate. He asked me for money." Tristan was staring at me. "Did you give it to him?" "Yes, $50,000. Every penny of my savings at the time." "Do you know what he did with it?" Tristan shook his head. "He used it to buy a fake lifestyle, a leased BMW, a rented apartment in a luxury building, designer clothes, all to look successful for his next job interview. It worked. He got the job, and he never paid me back, never even acknowledged it." I paused, letting that sink in. "When you came to me 6 years ago with your startup pitch, you sounded exactly like him. 'Mom, I need to look like a success to become a success.' And I realized you'd learned nothing from my example. You'd learned everything from his." "So what?" Tristan said, his voice breaking. "So you decided to destroy me? To prove a point?" "No, I decided to save you." "By taking everything?" "By showing you that everything you had was an illusion. Tristan, do you know how old your father is?" 67. "Do you know what he does when he's alone? When Isabella isn't watching, when he doesn't have an audience?" Tristan shook his head. "He drinks. He scrolls through social media looking at other people's success. He lies awake at night terrified that someone will discover he's a fraud. He's 67 years old, and he still doesn't know who he is without a title. He's still performing. He's still pretending. And he's miserable." I leaned forward. "I couldn't let that happen to you. I couldn't let you spend your whole life chasing an image, never building anything real. So I made a choice. I would fund your illusion, yes, but I would also control it. I would be there to pull the plug the moment you mistook performance for reality. I waited 6 years, Tristan. 6 years, hoping you'd wake up on your own. Last Saturday, when you called me ordinary in front of strangers, I knew the surgery could wait no longer." "So what now?" he whispered. You've proven your point. I'm nothing. You win. This was never about winning. I reached across the small space between us and took his hand. It was the first physical contact we'd had in years. This was about saving you from becoming your father. His fingers were cold in mine. Derek is 67 years old, I said again. And he's miserable. He's trapped in a performance he can never stop. But you're 33. You have time. You have the chance to become something real. But I've lost everything? No. You've lost the illusion. What you build from here, that will be everything. I handed him the job offer. I'm not giving you money, Tristan, but I am giving you this. A chance to learn what real work feels like, to understand the difference between performance and building, to discover who you are when nobody's watching. He looked at the paper, at the salary that was less than he spent on clothes in a year, at the job title that had no prestige. What if I'm not good at it? He asked. Then you'll fail, and you'll try again. That's what builders do. He sat there for a long time, holding that piece of paper, crying quietly. Finally, he looked up at me. I'll take the job, he said, his voice shaking. But I need you to know. I don't know if I can forgive you for this. Not yet. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I said gently. I'm asking for effort. Why? Why do you still believe in me after everything I said? Everything I did? Because I'm your mother. And mothers see foundations, not facades. There was a knock at the door. We both turned, surprised. I went to answer it. Natalie stood there, looking nervous. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said, but Simone, can I say something? I gestured for her to come in. She walked into the study, saw Tristan's tear-stained face, and her own eyes filled with tears. I've been complicit in this, she said. I loved the lifestyle. I encouraged Tristan to project success. I posted photos of penthouses and cars that weren't really ours. I'm not blameless. She turned to Tristan. But I married you because I loved you. The guy who used to sketch building designs on napkins at dinner. The guy who got excited about infrastructure. I want that guy back. Then she looked at me. If you're offering him a second chance, I want to earn one too. Can I work for you too? I don't care what the job is. I'll answer phones. I'll file papers. I just want to be part of something real. I studied her for a long moment. She was young, yes. She'd been shallow, yes. But standing in my study with no makeup, wearing yesterday's clothes, asking for a chance to start over, she was also honest. You can start Monday, I said. Same salary as Tristan. Prove to me you mean it. The three of us stood there in my small study, surrounded by blueprints and books and the evidence of a life built on real work. We weren't healed, we weren't fixed, but we were honest, maybe for the first time. This won't be easy, I said. I know, Tristan replied. You'll want to quit. Probably. Good. Then when you don't quit, you'll know it was your choice. I walked to a closet in the corner of my study and pulled out a box I'd prepared weeks ago, back when I first authorized Phase Omega, back when I knew this moment would come. This is for you, I said, handing it to Tristan. He opened it. Inside was a hard hat, work boots, engineering textbooks, and safety glasses. On the hard hat, in permanent marker, I'd written, Tristan Blackwood, Builder. His hands trembled as he lifted out the hard hat. I had one like this, he whispered. When I was little, you took me to job sites. I still have the photo. It's on my desk. You were 5 years old and you told me you wanted to be a builder, like me. He put the hard hat on. It fit now. He looked at himself in the reflection of the window, a 33-year-old man wearing a hard hat that said Builder, and for the first time in years, I saw something in his face that looked like peace. We didn't hug. We didn't make grand declarations. But as Tristan and Natalie left that night, I felt something shift. Not fixed, not healed, but shifting. The demolition was complete. Now we could rebuild. 6 months later, April 22nd, 2025. Spring in Atlanta. I'm standing in front of the West Side Community Center at 11 a.m. There are 200 people here. City council members, neighborhood residents, local press. The building behind us is beautiful. Red brick, large windows, solar panels on the roof. It will serve 10,000 families a year. I designed it. My firm built it. and Tristan coordinated the entire project. He's standing next to me in work boots and jeans, holding a clipboard. His hair is longer now, a bit messy. There's dirt under his fingernails. He's lost weight, the good kind, the kind that comes from physical work instead of gym trainers. He looks real. Natalie is here too, running social media for my firm. She's posting about community impact, not luxury. Her follower count has dropped to 31,000. She doesn't care anymore. The posts she makes now show construction workers, community members, the real work of building. The mayor hands me oversized scissors for the ribbon cutting. Ms. Blackwood, would you like to do the honors? Tristan should, I say. He earned it. My son looks at me, and for the first time in years, I see that 5-year-old in the hard hat. The boy who loved buildings and bridges. The boy I thought I'd lost. Together, he says quietly. We hold the scissors together and cut the ribbon. The crowd applauds. Camera flashes pop. Local news cameras record the moment. Tristan leans close and whispers, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I whisper back, "Thank you for not giving up on yourself." Later, as the crowd disperses and people tour the new community center, I see a black Mercedes pull up. My stomach tightens. Derek gets out, wearing a suit that's trying too hard. He walks toward us with that familiar confident stride, that performance of success he's been giving for 40 years. "Tristan," he calls out. "Son, I saw the news about the community center. I'm so proud of you. Maybe we can grab lunch and catch up." Tristan interrupts him. His voice is calm, steady. "Derek, I'm working. And no, we can't grab lunch. I'm your father." "Biologically," Tristan says. "But the person who taught me what it means to build is right here." He gestures to me. "I don't have time for people who only show up when there's something to gain." Derek's face flushes red. He looks at me, his eyes full of rage. "Simone, you've poisoned him against me." "No, Derek," I say calmly. "I taught him to see foundations. You were always just a facade." He stands there for a moment, searching for something cutting to say. But there's nothing left. No leverage, no power. He storms back to his Mercedes and drives away. I watch him go and feel nothing. No satisfaction, no anger. Just the quiet knowledge that some chapters are meant to close. Tristan touches my arm. "You okay?" "I'm perfect," I say, and I mean it. That evening I sit on my back porch with a glass of iced tea. The same porch, the same chair, the same view I've had for 30 years. But everything feels different. Lighter. My phone buzzes. A text from Tristan. "Coffee tomorrow morning? I want to show you my design for the Riverside Park Bridge proposal. I've been working on it all week." I smile. A real smile. The kind that comes from deep in your chest. 7 a.m. My kitchen. I'll make the Folgers. I set my phone down and look at my garden. The roses I pruned 6 months ago are blooming now. Full, healthy, beautiful. Strong enough to last through whatever comes next. I'm Simone Blackwood. I'm 64 years old. I spent 42 years building bridges that hold up cities, designing structures that will outlast me by generations. I've calculated loads and stress points. I've understood how things stand and how they fall. But the most important structure I ever built took 33 years and almost broke me. Some foundations are worth the wait. Some structures need to be taken down to the studs before they can be built right. Some love is strongest when it looks like steel. And some victories are too quiet for anyone else to hear, but they echo forever. My son is a builder now, not a performer, not a fraud. A builder, and that matters more than any bridge I'll ever design.